And we're live. Right when Sean goes to get some water. Good morning.
Good morning.
This
Hey,
is
Cleo.
Compassion Speak, and today I, Cleo Dunsmore Buchanan, and my compadre, Chaplain Sean
Chaplain Sean
Allison,
Allison. Yes.
super amazing guy, incredible wise man, great teacher, my teacher. We're here to talk today about the topic of forgiveness, particularly forgiveness in families. You might have some feelings about this. One thing that I thought of was how many people have that sort of hanging resentment over somebody in their family. Maybe they live hundreds of miles away, so you never have to deal with it. And it's different than having somebody in your house who you have a resentment with, where maybe you have to deal with it. Maybe you have to either forgive, move on, find a way to address it. Maybe you find a way to just come to peace with it in your heart and just accept that this person is the way they are and that
Mm.
this is maybe an okay thing. You don't have to be upset about it. But how many of us have relatives that don't live nearby, and therefore we can harbor resentment against them forever?
Mm.
Or how many of us are the black sheep? Somebody who everybody has resented for a really long time. And maybe even we keep that feeling even when others aren't experiencing it.
Right, good observations. I think for myself that families are where it all begins. The blessings, the issues, that's where the imprint of life gets its start. And so the issues will carry on much greater, much further than families. We carry it with us every day, and it affects our ability to engage and let go as we go throughout our day. So, what a wonderful topic to address and undress and learn more about acceptance and about what really matters and what the priorities are.
So, one thing I was thinking about is, what is forgiveness really?
Mm.
We walk around saying these words, and many times I find, clients, friends, whoever I might be working with, can have a real definition of forgiveness that means that they can't use it. I can't use that. I will now be in danger.
Mm.
If I forgive, then my walls will be down, and this person who has hurt me in the past is going to hurt me again. So, what
Mm.
is forgiveness really?
I don't think that forgiveness is the absence of being hurt.
Mm.
I think forgiveness is the ability to hurt and still move on and still become and discover and explore what I am ready for, what Cleo is ready for. Um, I think it's an invitation that life gives us to change our perspective, to look at our priorities, and to let go of what we cannot do, and to embrace how we can do what we can do that represents what we need, and that is the gift we have in interacting with our family. That's where the integrity comes in. That's where the follow through comes in, because we can actually do that. Um, it is our personality. It's who we choose to be.
Mhm.
So we have forgiveness on one level that's about how we're adjusting, and then the more common, um, I would say, aspect of forgiveness is letting go of on what others have done to us. But really, that's a shift in ourselves. So the more that I can take the focus off of their behavior, um, the more I can step into who I want to be and what I can do, and the attitude that can not just have it be words, but the actions can really delve into a deeper expression of my needs and my desires and what I can what I can offer.
I love that. Yeah. I think so much of forgiveness is a territory that we haven't been in, to be able to accept something that is really to us unacceptable. And so, yeah, there's a lot of discovery. There's a lot of bravery.
I like that word.
Stepping into something that's new that we don't know what it is really. Yeah.
Yeah. And oftentimes we're engaging skills that we don't have
Mm-hmm.
or that we don't know how to manage.
Mm-hmm.
If I have an issue that um, I have a hard time working on, um, more than likely I first engaged that, I first experienced that in my family.
Mm-hmm.
And I've noticed that how remarkable it is that those skills are often found in our vocational space, in
Mm-hmm.
our relationships with other people that are safe and stable, and where there's a stronger expression and permission to be who you are. Um, we're working on those insecurities already in relationships that we um, extend out to other people and call them extended families or chosen families. They can really add stability to our community and our tribe. So I think being able to play around with this word family and include the people that know us and that receive us at a level that we're learning how to receive ourselves. I mean, there are things that you give me permission to be who I am beyond my ability to discover at the moment, and that type of familiar or that type of energy that represents family is something that I can go and add to my family of origin and be there to
Mm-hmm.
support my mother because I have learned that from Cleo. So I think that we can pull that from other areas and allow for that family to and allow our ability to forgive to be um, embraced by a larger community, and that doesn't feel like such a an awkward and momentous occasion because you're already in the act of doing that every day.
I loved what you said about discovering ourselves, receiving ourselves
Mm,
in there. I think that, one of the threads that kind of runs through what you're describing is forgiving ourselves. And I am really struggling with that one. I've now had a year of listening to an angel who has finally admitted that I'm just not hearing him well, and that
mm,
most of what a good portion of what I've thought that he was saying is not real. In this, he would say over and over again, like, I am never, I'm always loving. Everything I say to you is loving. Well, if you sound like my abusive dad, and 90% of the pressure I'm getting is to go forgive my family, and then, like, I'm getting this message that all this abusive speak is my responsibility to accept it as being actually loving, which is what my parents meant to be all this time, no matter how they sounded, they really actually are trying. If a Neanderthal is trying to be loving, they're going to whack you with a bone and say,
There you go.
"Grr,"
Drag you by the
that's
hair.
loving, right?
Yeah.
So here I was getting this message for like a year of get over it. This is positive. What is wrong with Cleo? Why can't, and like literally that I should be treating my son this way.
Mm.
And so to forgive not only the spirit for letting this go on, because all he had to do was say this was happening. Because as soon as he did, I went, oh, why didn't you tell me?
Mm.
To forgive what has happened, to forgive myself for allowing this to go on and on and on and never just saying, I really don't care whether or not, this is not even, this can't be right.
Mm. I think there's a buoyancy and almost a grounding effect that when we acknowledge where we're at the moment, that next stage of forgiveness, that next layer we peel back, there's a settling into life that happens that feels very grounded and supported. There is a burden that is lifted off the shoulders, and I have a deeper breath, and my tone in my voice drops into where I am confident and where I've received myself. And I think that we can find forgiveness in that next action that produces that. So I'm not saying to go out and to say something that you're not ready to back. Rather, discover the behavior that brings you to the point in yourself that you can be received. Because until Sean can receive Sean, I can't receive that from my mother. I can't receive that from my brother or my sister in law or anyone else in my family because I am fighting that in myself.
Yeah. Yeah, really, when I finally put down my foot and said, this just isn't right, and I'm out of here with this angel that I was struggling with for so long, there's a huge amount of acceptance of who I am and allowing
Mm.
that it's a good thing.
Yeah, I think that's where the acceptance comes in, is that we can understand that, wait a minute, I am expecting for someone to have skills that they simply do not want or cannot do or don't have the ability to respond in that way. And I, matching the energy of what is familiar, will continue to reach out to those that cannot produce what I am desiring because I'm more attracted to the emotion of not being received. And so I
Mm.
continue to create that rather than be able to shift that into a place that is already stable and already going on, and perhaps at the workplace or perhaps from someone who has received me into their family and have treated me like their own.
Oh
I
my gosh, this is it, right? That's the
Yeah,
root of all the
yeah.
patterns that we recreate, right? We
Hmm.
have a pattern, we leave, we're like, oh my God, I don't need that pattern anymore. And then all of a sudden, here it is on our plate again. It's comfortable, right? It's comfortable. And we're already in not giving ourselves anything better than what that pattern allows for. And so just find another spot to slip into it. Yeah, I
Yeah,
hear that. Yeah.
yeah. I think that once we get used to going to the right people for those that can respond the way that we need to feel supported. Then we can start recognizing the language to ask for it in other circumstances.
Mhm.
Until that, we're going to be recreating what is familiar in order to learn the puzzle of why we are confused, why we are missing out on an experience.
I love that. I love that you said that, that it's all about learning, really. I think so many times it's really painful to recreate the same pattern and feel like, what is wrong? What is wrong with me? Walk around blaming ourselves, not forgiving ourselves, not accepting. Because I think so much of acceptance and forgiveness really has to do with seeing the real truth, right? We have this, there's ever so many truths, and there's so many colors, and there's so many ways of looking at things. But if you actually decide to look at things from that perspective of optimism, of
Hmm.
faith, of confidence, then all of a sudden everything starts working. And how can that be if that is not the true nature of the universe? If you're suddenly in alignment with the universe and everything starts working, how can we deny
Yeah,
that that's what the actual truth is? That when we can see, oh, I'm learning. There's nothing wrong with repeating this pattern. I just don't want to anymore.
yeah. Well, and if we look at it from a place of relationship, then we're going to feel at home as we adjust our perspective and engage the part of forgiveness that we're being asked or invited into, which is not the fuller picture. The fuller picture may be the goal, but how I shift my perspective to embrace what is going on right now are the stepping stones that help us get to that goal.
Mhm.
So we can have the horizon set at peace, um, at community, at celebration. You know, and along the way, we will find opportunities to be able to respond in a way that feels that and that can identify it already going on. Because what's broken is already at work as well. And I may be more familiar with noticing all the reasons why I can't receive something or why something is not working. And my focus is on the brokenness of it. And maybe that's what raising the meaning does. The more mindful approach is to continue to add layers of meaning from Sean's perspective. And that becomes my gifts to offer my family. And that helps the family adjust to each other. You know.
So let's get down to some examples. So I
Okay.
gave a painful and current example. You don't have to give a painful and current example,
No, but
but
yeah,
and you can if you want to.
yeah. Well, I have I think that when wounds occur and that distance is created, and those relationships are strained, I think the first response is out of my pain, um, and really a more judgmental assessment of what's going on. You know, you did this to me. Um, I am angry at you, or I am sad, or I don't want to be around you. So I think the impact of it is where we perhaps spend the most time in the areas that I don't spend enough time in is that vision of what's beyond and what's before that impact. Um, the good days that I've had with my family, the rough rubs that I've experienced, are really in if I were to measure them, I would still have a lot more positive experiences than the negative ones. And yet, when I'm in pain, I have trained myself to look at only one or two facets of what is going on, zoom in, become very clear on where I'm hurt. But that just reproduces the same hurt. In fact, I take that hurt and it affects my conversation with Cleo. I take that and it affects my conversations with my clients or with other people. Um, so I'm looking at being able to accept what is going on and what I can do to take care of myself, because in this moment of that pain, I cannot ask and receive from them what I need in myself.
Yeah. Receiving. It's so interesting. The idea of forgiveness is definitely something that we create. We create it for ourselves, we create it for others and who we're in relationship with. And yet, receiving is really a core root issue. If I can't receive, even from myself, total acceptance that I am an angel channeler, then when somebody in my family goes, "You're a what?" Like, what? Like, how could you be that? Like, how could you even believe that? If I'm not 1000% rooted in my truth and accepting of my truth, then how can I receive from them? Oh, yeah, you are an angel channeler. Of course you are. Of course I've
Mhm.
heard the angels. Of course I hear all kinds of guidance in all kinds of different ways. And everybody does. Everybody has this experience. People just blow it off. Or they think, oh, this is the one time it's happened in my whole life, or something like that. But as soon as you start talking to them, they have more stories. And I was driving down the road and suddenly I just absolutely knew I needed to turn around in order to make sure that my truck would make it to the right repair shop,
And that happened
which
recently.
lay
Yes.
behind me instead of ahead of me. Right. So I think acceptance and being able to receive, like, if we can't create space for our own acceptance, then we can't receive the forgiveness and understanding and acceptance of somebody else. And it kind of goes in the opposite direction as well. If we can't forgive ourselves, we're going to walk around chasing our kid around the house with the claw, the mom claw. Yeah, didn't put
Yeah.
away your dishes, whatever it is,
Hmm.
And it doesn't even matter what it is, right? Like, we find ourselves angry and walking around, blaming people that have nothing to do with what we're angry and frustrated with,
Hmm.
when we have not forgiven ourselves. Suddenly we can't forgive anything. We can't forgive dirty dishes left out. It has
Yeah.
nothing to do with anything.
Well,
It's
and I
completely
think it
this
takes us on a
reflection.
journey, and perhaps a larger part of that forgiveness is in the support of close friends who understand us better, who receive us better, and teach us the skills of receiving those that don't receive us well. By taking those opportunities, taking those skills, and putting it to work in our topic or issue, then we're moving beyond um, the the place where we're getting stuck. We're moving beyond that ability to forgive in our families because we're learning to forgive it in areas that don't count at the same level of magnitude. And so it's safer. And then when we bring it back and plug it into our families, we can also bring in the support of others that remind us who we are. We also have the universe who is very clear in promises and in our identity and reminding us who we are. I pull from the Christian perspective, so I lean on the promises that I was taught and that I believe are there for me when I ask for it, when I desire it, when I step into it. It becomes something brand new. And so I think forgiveness has a lot more to do with myself than, and being able to forgive someone who has hurt me still begins inside myself. Gosh darn, you know, because if the horizon says that that I am okay, that I can manage this, then focusing on the horizon and still being able to, like if you're hiking, being able to notice the rocks that you're stumbling over, even though you're looking down the trail. You know, that there's a fuller, um, a broader perspective that keeps us grounded, that keeps us in pace with what's going on.
Mhm.
And so we're just talking about the smaller steps of forgiveness that are adjusting and noticing how I am in the world. Because as I can adjust and notice um, how I feel about myself and be okay each step of the way, then that path is always going to change on how I find forgiveness. And it will feel familiar because I've activated that from inside out.
Yeah. Feel that. So, one issue that we talked about briefly is the idea that our pain, that we're going to be open to our pain the minute that we choose forgiveness, and that this is a huge barrier, that people have this idea that, oh, you know, somebody in my family was a jerk to me, they're going to be a jerk again. This is their basic nature. If I forgive them, then the doors are wide open, and here come the arrows, and I'm going to get shot up with all their hurtful words.
I think those hurtful words are already playing in the background of every experience that we have.
Mm.
And so we run across them and respond to them every day. It may be in a small way, someone cutting you off in front of um, trying to make a right hand turn. And so you have to slam on the brakes and adjust your behavior to give them room. I think the more that we can get used to that, I mean, think of how many times you've done that while driving. That yes, it's a moment issue, but can you remember 3 weeks ago what happened? You know, at that intersection. We don't remember it because we let it go. We've made it no longer important, insignificant. It becomes a part of the water that flows past us. And I think that forgiveness is inviting us into that kind of relationship to where we can let things go because in the moment it matters and tomorrow it's just a story. And yet the pain I assign, the the forgiveness I can receive, and the roles that I assign people to trigger things inside of me that um, remind me of pains from the past. can be reassigned, can be played out in a multitude of different ways that are less painful. But pain is okay. And if I avoid it, it gets stronger.
Mhm.
You know, I remember sitting in the waiting room, waiting to be seen. I had a broken wrist, and in the emergency room, there was a 3 hour wait. And so here I am sitting with a broken wrist, trying not to do anything because everything is hurting. And a friend was sitting next to me, and they were reminding me, well, what color is the pain? Well, right now the color of the pain is red, and it's throbbing. Okay, so that has kind of a visual effect of a bouncing ball. So imagine that bouncing red ball, and then just watch the bouncing and make the bouncing slow down. Change the color of that ball to a lighter red, to a pink, to a white color. All of a sudden, how I'm responding to that pain is changing. My body's responding to me making myself better, being okay, because I'm walking my through that de-escalation of that pain. So we can amplify the pain, and we can also soften it. I was working at a daycare center past couple of this week doing window cleaning, and it's amazing how many people fall over in that building. People are falling over all the time, and some people are looking to see who's watching. And when they zero in on someone who sometimes just taking a moment and finding that right. Okay, so right there is an example of working through pain, working through of the process of what's going on. You know, the more uptight I get that I can't talk, the more it's going to constrict my ability to talk. And the more I relax it, then it can drop down and be in a more grounded place. That relaxation, that confidence, that um, our personality returns, and then I can be back where I'm at. But I've had to walk myself through that process, and that process can either um, accelerate the pain or the discomfort. It can manage it, and it can also diminish it. You know,
Isn't it interesting? Like, so much of what people believe is like authenticity today has to do with exactly that. Like, has to do with this idea that my living out um, that those big feelings instead of, yeah, choosing that those big feelings are there. I see them, I feel them, but they don't have to make my decisions.
yeah. Well,
That
in part,
that is okay. That that's
yeah,
not, that we're allowed. You know, that
allowed.
that
Yes.
is what healing is, actually,
Hmm.
is getting triggered, experiencing it, holding it, loving it, and choosing something else.
And teaching other people how to respond to our triggers by responding differently ourselves. We're teaching people with our behavior every day. And so the easiest way to change relationships is to change Sean. You know, yeah, what a wonderful opportunity, though. Forgiveness is something we experience every single day, and letting go of what um, what keeps us back. Those limiting beliefs are a lot about forgiveness, acting out our pain, is all about forgiveness.
Yeah.
Responding to people in the same way because that's how it has always been. What if what makes you real is the pain, or what makes the experience come to life, or is makes it relevant, includes the pain that you don't want to experience? Then why not adjust your expectations and remove the pain? We do that in other circumstances with friends, with extended family, with entrusted people in our lives. We forget to bring those skills back to our families and teach through our example of how we can support what they need from a different place because of our attachments and our ability to withhold because now we want to get back at them. But if I can truly understand my brother's love language, then all I have to do is go pick up a hammer and help, you know, to see the dishes in the sink and start cleaning them. I think that our our forgiveness and the fruit of that labor um, happens so easily with when you're in love, and you refuse to do it when you're angry, right? So how can I become in love or capture the passion so the task is not a big deal? Because the way I'm going to get back at you is not doing what you asked me to do because you hurt me earlier. And so much of that is, I mean, you see it in politics, you see it in religion, you see it because it's a very common practice. And if we're going to rise above that, then we have to be mindful. We have to add reasons to be and to do and to act in a way that brings harmony, that brings love and compassion and stability to what's going on. And that requires me changing my attitude about the next step in the process.
I've got it.
Yes.
Let's fight like Paul McCartney and John Lennon by writing love songs that are the best songs that anyone has ever heard and become more popular and on everyone's lips for 100 years.
Well, and perhaps we know that we're in the midst of forgiveness when it affects more than just ourselves. It changes how people respond. It becomes contagious. It becomes rallying, and drives it towards a bigger vision.
Wow, that's great. I love that. We know that we're in forgiveness when it starts affecting all the beautiful ripples that go out. That is beautiful. I love that.
And that can begin in my envisioning what is going on around me, adding in that support that is there that may not be visual. It's certainly systemic because I shifted myself. When I dropped from the head to the heart, my body knows how to respond to that very quickly. When I'm in love, I treat things with more mindfulness, with more care, with more reverence. And that reverence is what forgiveness is calling us into, is a deeper meaning and integration of life and what life has to offer in this moment.
Healing with the sacred instead of confrontation, like we were talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. I have more skills in confrontation. Doesn't mean I get any further in the process.
Wow. Interesting. I didn't know that. Actually, I did know that. It's from all of the work you did in the past,
Well,
working with.
working at the group home for autistic men.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a very special training ground.
Mm-hmm.
And I think life is the proving ground of how we want to be in the world. And so my pain is going to show up in a way that shapes the virtues to come, that shapes what I need inside of me. Because until I meet those needs, I'm going to expect everyone to or not to provide for that. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a very, uh, let's say, Russian roulette, you know.
And it's a place of resentment, right?
Hmm.
Because we can't get our needs met. It's not
Yeah,
humanly possible. Not, we're all walking around with gaps and things missing, and even even in the most perfect looking life, there are holes and gaps and pitfalls and all kinds of things, and we can spend a long time judging ourselves for that. We can spend a long time searching for somebody else to fill that. We can spend years in patterns that recreate it because we just think that that is what love is,
yeah.
because
Well, I
that's the
think
pattern.
a large part of that forgiveness, a large part of that wound, is um, restaging that conversation to go differently. If I am familiar with someone who cannot be there for me, and I will focus on the lack of that and never experience, no matter how hard I try, to have that experience with them. That temptation for them to trip over their own personality, their own habits and way of being in this world will always be the same. So I think part of that forgiveness is learning to have the right conversation with the right people. If you approach someone with honesty and transparency and they cannot hold that at a high esteem, no matter how many times you try, you will be hurt from that conversation with that person. And if you take that person to someone who has been through it, who understands you or is ready to receive you at a deeper level, they're going to help you peel back those layers until you can see yourself clearly. And both of you can be received.
I think that is the perfect ending note for today. Thank you so much. This has been absolutely beautiful. I so appreciate it. Thank you so much, Sean.
Yeah, you're welcome, Cleo. And just a reminder that I am working with individuals with these techniques, and so is Cleo. So look us up on Compassion Speak and on the Facebook group Healing Waters for Empaths. And we look forward to talking with you next week. All right. In the meantime, look for the support that you are desiring, and for those that are already there desiring to meet those needs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, Sean. Whoops. Whoops. I can't figure out where my hands are.